This story does not begin with a lie. It begins with a belief, held so deeply it felt like truth. Alex believed that the universe was fundamentally just. He operated on the unshakable conviction that hard work was rewarded, loyalty was reciprocated, and integrity was the ultimate currency. This belief was the bedrock of his life, the quiet hum beneath every decision, every late night, every handshake. His team was his family. They had shared pizzas at 2 a.m., celebrated small victories, and weathered stressful client storms together. He knew their coffee orders, their children's names, their professional dreams. He believed they knew his. When he poured his soul into the Ether Project, a revolutionary digital ecosystem, it was for them as much as for himself. It was their shared legacy. The end did not come with a bang, but with a whisper. A single email, sent on a Tuesday morning at 9:04 a.m. The subject line was innocuous. Project Ether Update. The body was a masterclass in corporate euthanasia. We are deeply grateful for your foundational contributions, a strategic pivot. Your skills are better aligned elsewhere. It was signed by the department head, but the words tasted of the entire team's collective silence. They had known. They had all known, and not one of them had picked up the phone. The physical sensation was a cold void opening in his chest, followed by a hot wave of nausea. He looked around the open plan office. Mark was avoiding his gaze, intently studying his monitor. Sarah offered a weak, pained smile that was worse than outright hostility. It was pity. In that shattering instant, the golden lens of trust through which he viewed the world cracked, and the true, brutal landscape was revealed. He saw not a team, but a pack. He saw not colleagues, but competitors in a game he never realized he was playing. Machiavelli's ancient warning echoed in the newly hollowed-out chambers of his mind. A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. Alex had professed goodness, and he was now utterly shipwrecked. But as he sat in the ruins of his faith, a figure observed him from the glass-walled corner office, a man who did not see a tragedy, but a promising, blank slate. The figure from the corner office found him 3 days later, adrift in the sterile silence of the corporate library. Alex hadn't been reading. He'd been staring at the same page for an hour, the words a blur of meaningless shapes. The man moved with a predator's quiet grace, settling into the leather armchair opposite him without a sound. He was older, his hair silvered at the temples, his suit impeccably cut. This was Mr. Croft, though in certain hushed circles he was known as Vulcan. His voice, when it came, was calm and measured, devoid of pity. They call it a restructuring, Vulcan began, not as a question, but a statement of fact. A fascinating term. It suggests improvement, optimization. It rarely is. It is simply breaking something to see which pieces are still useful. He steepled his fingers. Your team was a structure. You were a piece. They broke you to see what would happen. You shattered. This was the expected outcome. Alex flinched, the raw wound prodded with clinical precision. I trusted them. And that, Vulcan said, a faint, cold smile touching his lips, was your original sin. You confused social bonds for strategic alliances. You offered loyalty, a variable and fickle emotion, when the situation demanded leverage, a tangible and reliable tool. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. Let me be clear. Your problem is not that you were betrayed. Your problem is that you were surprised. You believed in the fairy tale. You thought nice was a strategy. It is not. It is a liability. This was the core of Vulcan's first lesson. Sentiment is the fog of war. It clouds judgment, dulls instincts, and makes you predictable. Your anger, your hurt, your desire for fairness, these are levers. And right now, everyone knows where to find them. Look at Mark, Vulcan instructed, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He does not lie awake haunted by your disappointment. He is calculating his next promotion. He has already categorized you as a resolved variable. To win, you must do the same. Stop feeling wronged. Start becoming dangerous. Alex felt a cold clarity begin to cut through the emotional static. It was terrifying and intoxicating. How? By understanding that power is not about loud declarations, Vulcan explained. It is about silent, decisive action. It is about making the other person's strength irrelevant and their weakness fatal. Mark's strength is his confidence. His weakness is the arrogance festering beneath it. Tomorrow, Vulcan said, rising smoothly from his chair, your education begins. We will start with a simple exercise. We will help Mark's arrogance write a check his talent cannot cash. And you, Alex, will be the one to hand him the pen. The next morning, Alex entered the office not as a victim, but as an apprentice assassin. Vulcan's final words had been a key, turning the lock on a door to a world he had never seen. His assignment was precise. Befriend him. Isolate him. And then, let him hang himself with the rope you provide. He began with Mark, the man who now sat at his old desk. Alex's approach was not one of confrontation, but of calculated deference. That presentation was brilliant, Mark, he said in the break room, his voice laced with just the right amount of genuine-sounding awe. The way you streamlined the client onboarding, I never would have thought of that. He saw the flicker of surprise in Mark's eyes, quickly replaced by a familiar, swelling pride. Alex became his shadow, his most enthusiastic supporter, the only one who truly understood the weight of his vision. Vulcan observed from a distance, a ghost guiding a new specter. His lessons continued via terse, midday texts. Truth is not a virtue. It is an asset. A truth revealed at the perfect moment is a scalpel. Revealed carelessly, it is a suicide note. Alex learned to listen not to the words people said, but to the fears they left unspoken. He discovered that everyone carries a hidden insecurity, a secret terror of being exposed as a fraud. For Mark, it was his intellectual debt. He was a brilliant presenter who could sell a vision, but a poor architect who couldn't build its foundation. He relied on the work Alex had already done, terrified of being asked to create something new from scratch. The stage was set for the client meeting. Mark was outlining his, formerly Alex's, plan to the senior partners. He was magnetic, charismatic, painting a glorious future. The room was captivated. Alex, sitting silently in the back, waited. He was a statue of attentiveness. As Mark finished, basking in the warm glow of approval, Alex raised a hand, his expression one of pure, constructive curiosity. Mark, that was truly inspiring, he began, his tone respectful. I just have one thought, purely on the technical scalability. Given the client's legacy infrastructure, which we all know is a nightmare, how do we prevent a total system collapse when we hit Phase 3? The data load would be unprecedented. The room's atmosphere shifted. The warm glow vanished, replaced by a sudden, chilling practicality. All eyes swiveled to Mark. His smile tightened. He stammered, reaching for jargon that wouldn't come. He had no answer. He had never thought that far ahead. He'd been too busy polishing the surface. Alex had not attacked. He had not been mean. He had been helpful. He had used a single, undeniable truth to plant a forest of doubt. He had been effective. That evening, a new text arrived from Vulcan. The scalpel works. Now for the poison. Sarah pities you. We will turn her compassion into a weapon she will use on herself. Sarah had been his friend. In the aftermath of his shunning, she was the only one who had reached out, her texts a lifeline of normalcy. It's so unfair, Alex. I'm here for you. Her empathy had felt like a warm blanket in a freezing room. Now, viewing it through Vulcan's lens, Alex saw the threads of that blanket for what they were, a snare. Pity is not compassion, Vulcan had explained, his voice cool and analytical. Compass ship seeks to elevate. Pity merely observes another's fall, grateful not to be falling alongside them. She looks at you and subconsciously thinks, thank God I am not him. Her kindness is not for your benefit. It is a ritual she performs to maintain her self-image as a good person. We will use that vanity. The assignment was colder, more intimate than the one with Mark. Make her need you. Then make her betray someone else for you. You must turn her empathy into a liability, her morality into a weakness you can exploit. Alex began a careful, calculated campaign. He started sharing vulnerabilities with Sarah over quiet coffees. They were masterful fabrications, tailored to her sensitivities. He spoke of mounting debt, of a sick mother's medical bills, of the crushing fear that he was a failure. He was laying a trap, and the bait was her own compassion. He watched her eyes soften, her posture become protective. He was making himself her project, her wounded bird. Simultaneously, he began the slow work of isolation. He would feed her small, seemingly innocent pieces of gossip about another colleague, Lena. I overheard Lena on the phone with the client. She was taking full credit for the dashboard design. I thought that was your work. He was planting a seed of suspicion in the fertile soil of her empathy, making her see a threat to her own status where none existed, positioning himself as her only true ally in a den of snakes. The test came when a small, but crucial, piece of project data, a client's security key, went mysteriously missing. The team was in a low-grade panic. Alex, in a carefully staged performance of frantic concern, pulled Sarah aside. Sarah, I think Lena has it, he whispered, his face a mask of desperate trust. I saw her looking at your files yesterday, and now it's gone. But if I accuse her, it will just look like I'm a bitter, vengeful person trying to cause trouble. She'll never believe me. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. But they'd believe you. You're the only one everyone trusts. He saw the war in her eyes, her genuine friendship with Lena battling against her newly forged, protective loyalty to him. He applied the final, decisive pressure. He looked down, the picture of defeated resignation. It's okay. Forget I said anything. I'm just used to losing by now. He had activated her pity, her need to be the savior. The hook was set. The next day, Sarah publicly confronted Lena in the middle of the open plan office. It was messy, emotional, and deeply unprofessional. Their team fractured instantly, taking sides in the heated argument. The manager, furious at the public drama, sidelined both women from the project pending an investigation. The path was now clear for Alex, the quiet, competent, and seemingly neutral party, to step in and assume control of the reconfigured team. He had not betrayed Sarah. He had orchestrated a scenario where she became the betrayer. He had weaponized her own goodness. He looked at himself in the restroom mirror that night, the sounds of the office quieted. The reflection was calm, controlled, victorious. But a chilling thought echoed in the silence. He was no longer the man who was betrayed. He was the architect of betrayal. And the final, most dangerous test would be when his architect, Vulcan, saw that his creation had learned a little too well. Victory, Alex was discovering, was a hollow chamber. He had won. He had the project lead title, the authority, the quiet respect that comes from demonstrated, ruthless competence. Yet, he felt himself disappearing, the core of who he was being systematically hollowed out and replaced with a cold, calculating algorithm. The persona of the strategist was consuming the man. He started having dreams of glass shattering, of his own reflections splintering into 1,000 sharp, disconnected pieces, each one a different lie he had told. In his new role, he found himself unable to have a simple, genuine conversation. Every word was measured, every gesture calibrated for effect. His laughter was an empty sound, a social tool deployed at the right moment to put others at ease. The weight of the mask was immense, and he could feel the face beneath it beginning to strain and crack. A call from his father, asking about his upcoming birthday, became a 5-minute exercise in emotional evasion. Just swamped at work, Dad. You know how it is. He heard the disappointment, the unspoken, "You've changed," and felt a pang of something he could no longer identify, guilt, or perhaps just annoyance at the distraction. Vulcan observed this dispassionately. "The feeling is normal," he stated, as if diagnosing a common cold. "It is the death rattle of your old self. That man was weak, sentimental, and destined for the slaughterhouse. Let him die. Do you think a lion feels guilt for the antelope? You are transitioning from prey to predator. The disorientation is a sign of success. But the analogy felt wrong. The lion did not have to wear the face of a friend. The lion did not have to look into the eyes of a Sarah, now isolated and confused, and pretend he was an ally. He was not just a predator, he was a poisoner, tainting every relationship he touched. He began to notice a subtle shift in Vulcan's demeanor. The mentor's gaze was no longer one of mere instruction, but of intense assessment. It was the look a blacksmith gives a blade he is testing for hidden flaws, just before it is put to its ultimate stress. Alex realized with a jolt that Vulcan was not just teaching him the mechanics of power, he was studying him, documenting the psychological cost. He was the scientist, and Alex was the experiment. The breaking point was a team briefing. He was laying out a new, aggressive timeline, his voice flat and commanding. He saw a junior staffer, a young woman named Chloe, flinch at his tone, her enthusiasm visibly dimming. In her face, he saw a ghost of his own former self, eager, idealistic, breakable. And for a single, terrifying second, he felt nothing but contempt for her weakness. The realization sickened him. He had not just put on a mask, the mask was now fusing to his skin, rewriting his very instincts. He stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling window that night, the city's countless lights spread out below him like a circuit board. Each light was a separate, isolated world. He had achieved the power Vulcan promised, but he was now its chief prisoner, trapped in a fortress of his own making. And he knew, with a cold certainty, that the most dangerous prisoner is the one who has forgotten what the outside world ever felt like. The summons came not from Vulcan, but from above him. A terse email from the office of the CEO requested Alex's presence in the boardroom. As he entered the silent, wood-paneled room, he saw the entire directorate seated around the immense table. And he saw Vulcan, positioned not at the head, but to the side, his face an unreadable mask. The air was thick with unspoken verdicts. "Alex," began the CEO, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've been observing the remarkable turnaround of the Ether project. Your handling of the recent team instability was decisive. Your strategic foresight on the scalability issue prevented a significant future crisis." She paused, letting the praise hang. "It's the kind of leadership we need in our senior strategic roles. Effective immediately, we are creating a new position, Director of Corporate Strategy. You will oversee Ether and all future long-term initiatives." It was a promotion that vaulted him 2 levels past his old station. And then came the final, exquisite twist. The CEO gestured vaguely toward Vulcan. "This does, of course, mean we will be consolidating Mr. Croft's former advisory responsibilities under your new portfolio. We trust you'll manage the transition smoothly." The room's attention shifted to Vulcan. For the first time since Alex had known him, he saw a fissure in the man's impassive facade. It was not shock, but something slower and more dangerous, a dawning, cold fury. The old lion had not just been outmaneuvered, he was being publicly dismantled, and the tools were his own. He had crafted the perfect weapon, only to have it aimed directly back at him. Later, Vulcan confronted him in the now familiar silence of the library. The calm was gone, replaced by a low, simmering intensity. "You think this is a victory?" he hissed, the words sharp and quiet. "You are a tool. A sharper blade they found to replace a duller one. Do not mistake their use for respect. When you cease to be useful, you will be discarded, just as they are discarding me." Alex looked at his mentor, and for the first time, he saw not a master strategist, but a man. A brilliant, lonely, and suddenly vulnerable man, clinging to the last vestiges of his influence. He saw the ultimate, unteachable weakness, the inability to let go, the emotional attachment to one's own position. "You taught me that all relationships are structures of use," Alex replied, his own voice unnervingly calm, a perfect mirror of Vulcan's former self. "You used me as your experiment, your proxy to prove your theories. They," he gestured upward, toward the C-suite, "are using me as a solution to their stagnation. The underlying principle is identical. You simply don't like your new coordinates in the structure I now navigate. He had weaponized Vulcan's own core philosophy against him. He had become a more perfect, more detached, and therefore more powerful, version of his teacher. He had shed the final sentiment, gratitude. Vulcan's face lost its remaining color. The realization was a physical blow. He had not just been defeated, he had been rendered obsolete. He had taught Alex too well, had stripped him of the very sentimentality that now made Vulcan himself a liability. There is one final lesson you failed to teach me, Alex said, turning to leave his mentor standing alone in the gathering dark. How to dispose of the teacher when his teachings become the greatest threat to the new order. He paused at the door, not looking back. But I suppose I'll have to devise that strategy on my own.
So, what is the haunting truth? It is not that the world is evil. It is not that you must be a monster to succeed. The forbidden truth is this: ruthlessness is not about harming others. It is about performing the final and most necessary act of surgery on your own soul. It is the excision of the need to be liked, the cauterization of the wound of external validation, the amputation of the fantasy that fairness is a law of the universe and not a temporary bargain between the powerful. Alex won. He has the title, the power, the office with the view, but he walks the halls as a ghost in a fortress of his own design. He can trust no one because he has taught everyone around him the same brutal lessons. He rules, but he is utterly alone. This is the cost. This is the equilibrium of power. The world did break him, but he rebuilt himself with harder materials. He is no longer nice, he is effective. The question that should haunt you, the one that forces you to look into your own heart in the silent, dark hours of the night, is not, could I do what Alex did? The question is, having seen the price he paid and the hollow victory he won, do you still want to?